In this video, what I wanted to show you was this cool little bongo conga loop that I've made. It's giving this project a nice bit of energy and drive, but it's also serving a second purpose. I'm using this to trigger some really interesting textural atmosphere, and I thought this would be interesting to walk you through, and hopefully you find it useful. So I think it's interesting. Hopefully you do too. Here's it. Here's how it sounds in the context of this little groove. Okay, so let's just solo the bongo here. That's what it sounds like in isolation, soloed. So let's have a look at this. I'm going to walk you through all the processing and everything involved with this bongo sound. So it's simply just a one shot. What it sounds like, taken from one of my sample packs, nothing crazy there. Let's look at the MIDI. So what I've done here to give this more of a human feel is I've just started with the high velocity values. So I just started with those because that's the main emphasis of the groove I wanted, are these high velocity hits here. And then I've just filled in the rest of the 16th notes with these lower velocity values at varying amounts to give, just to fill that 16th groove in and give a little bit more of a human feel with those velocity changes. I've also added some swing. So if we zoom in, you can see that the notes on the divisions here are pushed back a little bit. Okay, so just to show you an example here with just this one hit. Hold shift, and I can move that back and forward. Just like that. So I just manually nudge those over to give a little bit of swing. Let's go ahead and I'm just going to solo the let's turn those off for a second. And I'll also turn this one off too. Okay, so once I had the pattern, I just made a few different variations of this. So I have the version A here. I have version C, which has just a small little roll at the end with some 30-second notes. And version B just has some velocity changes. So just a few minor changes on those three different variations of this bongo loop, and I've just alternated them here just to give, again, a little bit of variation and to humanize this a little bit more. So let's go over the processing on this. First thing I've done is just simple EQ. I have a noise layer on this, so I don't want too much of the top end here. And I also want to save some room for the low tom and the top bass that's kind of sitting down in this area. Notched out kind of a nasty frequency here at 500. Yeah, just pulled that out. Okay, now I'm also adding some compression, and that's really subtle, but it's just kind of emphasizing those transients a little bit. Not doing a lot there, it's quite subtle. And then I'm also adding a little bit of distortion. This is also on the subtle side. Just a little bit of distortion there. And then sometimes what I'll do after I add distortion, I'll add another low cut just to make sure any added harmonics from the distortion are being cleaned up. So that's what this EQ is doing here, just simply another low cut after the distortion. To add a little bit more movement here, I've added an auto pan, and it's just panning at an unsynced rate. Not a lot, but you can hear it kind of drifting slightly back and forth, left and right. Okay. Now I'm adding a little bit more automation to the decay with this LFO here. And we can see that happening. Again, I just want to kind of humanize this as much as possible to keep it interesting and evolving. And this is a really subtle LFO on the decay. And then I've added some sidechain as well. So the next thing I've done is added a noise layer to this. So let's hear it with the noise. And so if we go to the noise MIDI, it's playing the exact same pattern as the bongo. I could find it here. Bongo noise. And I'm just using the 3X OSC, just the one noise oscillator here. And there's a LFO on the decay and release. I believe that it's set to an 8th dotted note. Just to make it a little bit more interesting. That's what it sounds like without it. I just thought it sounded much better with that LFO on there. It gives it a little bit more life. And what I've also done is I'm having the bongo trigger this volume on the noise. You can see it's reacting to the bongo. And I've just simply done that by using a peak controller on the bongo itself and then linking that to this volume control here. Okay. And then adjusting that to taste with the controls on the peak controller. I'm boosting some of the top end. That's why, again, I've taken quite a bit of top end off of the bongo itself, because I'm getting the high end from the noise instead, and then rolled off some of the low end. Now, to get to this atmospheric texture, I'm also using these bongos to trigger some nice atmosphere. So I'll show you what that sounds like. So the reason I have this one knob here is this is linked to the send amount to this delay, which we'll go over in just a second, this space delay. But I've linked both the bongo and the bongo noise to this one knob. So in the arrangement, when I'm automating this or playing around with it, I only have one knob to automate. So when I turn this, both the bongo and the bongo noise are going through this space delay. And this is where the atmosphere is coming from. So to create this atmosphere, I've used the replica and then followed that with some of this delay, which I use quite often. It's kind of a lush, chorusy type delay. And then to bring up some of those kind of low levels and textures of the delay, I'm using the OTT for that, just to give it a little bit of a lift. And then I'm actually doing a pretty extreme EQ boost. I thought that the frequencies just sounded nice in this area. And that's something I do from time to time, is I'll experiment with these like really heavy-handed extreme boosts on reverb and delay sends. Sometimes you can really pull out some interesting pockets of frequencies that just sound nice, and it's something that I typically wouldn't do on an original sound source. But on effects and things like this, I like to experiment with these really extreme boosts, and then just some side chaining at the end of that chain on the reverb delay to keep that kind of in check and help it just kind of pump with the track. So I thought that was kind of an interesting little multi-layered little bongo groove with also some atmospheric there that I thought maybe you might find interesting. Again, let's kind of hear it in the context of the track. So what it sounds like on its own, but we'll throw on the So there you go. It's a cool little, bongo groove. It's got a lot of like little nice movement to it, and it's also giving me the option to add this nice atmospheric texture as well. So hopefully you found that useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, everyone.